Hello, welcome to Movie Summaries. Today we are summarizing a 2021 mystery thriller movie called The Woman in the Window. Fair warning, there are spoilers in this summary. Enjoy, and be sure to subscribe to watch more videos weekly, and hit like. The movie opens with a shot of us spinning in what looks like snow before we wake up with our main character, Anna Fox. We get a pan through Anna's townhouse and see pictures of Anna's daughter, Olivia. Anna talks to Olivia and her husband Ed on the phone. She tells her husband about the new neighbors, the Russells. She asks him to tell her to go outside, and we learn that Anna is agoraphobic, meaning she can't go outside due to severe panic attacks. Anna's therapist comes to see her and asks about Anna's tendency to observe her neighbors' lives through the windows. She knows how much the Russells paid for their house, their names, jobs, and where they came from. Kinda creepy, to be honest. Anna gets frustrated with him for asking questions she finds irrelevant when she would rather discuss her medications. Anna's therapist asks how her meds are doing since she stopped drinking. However, Anna fails to mention that she didn't stop. She makes a joke about suicide, and it is revealed that she attempted to take her own life once. Later that night, she talks to her husband again and rants how she believes her therapist gets off on controlling her. Ed tries to calm her down and convince her that the therapist is on her side. After their conversation, Anna settles into her window seat with a glass of wine and watches into her neighbor's windows. A couple having dinner, a prayer group meeting for a session, a man practicing his trumpet, and finally, the Russells. A buzz at her front door startles Anna and causes her to drop her wine glass. She goes to answer the door over her speaker, and we are introduced to Ethan Russells, the son of her new neighbors. He comes offering a candle from his mother. Anna invites him in, and they have a quick chat. Right away, we can tell that something is off with Ethan. He's innocent and childlike, probably the result of a learning disability of some sort. We learn that Anna is a child psychologist. She tells Ethan that she is separated from her husband and daughter when he points out the picture of her family. Ethan is so kind. He points out that he can see her house from his room. Anna seems a little taken aback by the fact that someone could also be seeing her from their window, just like she sees everyone else. As Ethan looks across the street into his own home, he starts to cry at the sight and thought of his father. Anna immediately recognizes the sign of an abused child and goes to comfort him. He flinches at her touch. Anna offers her friendship, and the two browse her large collection of movies, ending with her letting him borrow a few. Later, Anna curls up on the couch to watch a movie with another glass of wine. It's the morning of Halloween, and Anna is awoken by the sound of someone buzzing her door. She goes downstairs to answer it, and finds it to be David, her tenant that rents her basement. He's come to see if she needs anything before he goes out of town. Later that night, Anna is in the middle of a meditation session when a loud thud interrupts her. Following another thud, she goes to look at her security camera and sees children throwing eggs at her door. She yells at them over the speaker to get away from her house, but they just yell back at her. Anna musters up the courage to go out and confront the kids, but as soon as she opens her front door, she passes out from a panic attack. When she wakes back up, a blonde woman is standing over her. It's Jane Russell. She tells Jane about her agoraphobia, and Jane awkwardly laughs it off. She asks Anna a bunch of questions about herself. A little nosy, isn't she? Jane is a bit brazen and crass, but she and Anna actually hit it off quite well. The two have some wine together and talk for hours about their kids, marriages, and life. They play cards, and Jane tells Anna that her husband Alistair is controlling, and she worries about Ethan because he is sensitive. She says her family is complicated. When Anna asks why her family is complicated, Jane draws a cartoon portrait of Anna to change the subject. Jane goes back home, and not long after Jane leaves, Alistair rings the bell to ask Anna if any of his family had come to visit her. She lies and tells him that no one has. Before he leaves, Anna tells him to thank his wife for the candle that Ethan brought over. The next morning, Anna is woken up by some loud rummaging downstairs. Geez, something is always happening at her house, and calls the police to report an intruder. When she reaches the bottom, she finds that it is only David looking for a box cutter. She tells the police it was a false alarm and hangs up. David tells her that Alistair asked him to help him unpack some boxes and store some stuff. He also informs her that she has mold growing on her sundome on her roof and tells her that she needs to call someone to seal it up. Later that night, Anna is in the bath when she hears a scream from the Russells' house. She calls the Russells' house and Ethan picks up. She asks him if everything is okay, and he tries to convince her that it is, but his crying tells her otherwise. He hangs up the phone on her, and she watches as Jane runs out of the house. Looking distressed, Alistair calls her back and asks who it is. From her window, Anna can see him pacing with a hammer in his hand. She tells him that she heard a scream and wanted to know if everything was alright. Alistair plays dumb and says he doesn't know anything about a scream and lies, saying him and Ethan have been the only ones at the house all day, before hanging up on her. Convinced that something fishy is going on, Anna gets out her camera and sets up to watch the house from her window. She goes downstairs to ask David if he heard anything. He hasn't. While she is spying on the Russells, Anna witnesses Ethan and Alistair arguing. Alistair yells in the boy's face and puts his hands on his face. Ethan leaves and comes over to Anna's house, clearly distressed. Anna asks him about what is going on at his house. He attempts to defend his father, saying he just has a lot of stress and has to let it out somehow. He goes to leave, but Anna stops him and pulls him into a hug. He breaks down crying on her shoulder. Anna gives him her phone number and assures him that no matter how bad things get at his house, he can always find a safe space with her. The next day, Anna talks to her husband on the phone. She tells him that she is conflicted about knowing what the right thing to do is. He advises her not to go looking into other people's houses. Her therapist calls her, saying that she left a message, but she has no recollection of said message. It seems like Anna might have a hard time staying in touch with reality sometimes. Mixing her medications with alcohol proves to be a nasty mix. Things move in slow motion, and she talks to the clock and her cat. She wakes up on the couch in a panic without her phone. She tries to retrace her steps to find it, frantically searching through her house. While searching, she happens to notice Jane arguing with someone across the street, though she can't see exactly who it is, and we assume it is Alistair. It looks like a pretty heated fight. She pulls out her camera to get a closer look, and sees Jane get pushed back with a knife in her stomach. Realizing she just watched her neighbor get murdered, Anna rushes to find her phone and call the police. Finally finding it under the bed, she struggles to tell the operator her address and what is happening, with the effects of the pills still lingering over her. Frustrated with the police, she grabs an umbrella and forces herself outside to try and go help. Not watching while crossing the road, Anna faints due to another panic attack as a car comes rushing towards her. When she wakes up, Anna is met with Detective Little and his partner waiting for her in her living room, hazy to the events leading up to now. Anna is puzzled as the detectives bombard her with questions. She is even more shocked to see Alistair standing with the detectives. He tells Anna that she has never met his wife, but Anna insists that she has. The detectives tell her that nothing has happened to anybody, contrary to what she says she saw. Anna seems like a disturbed mental case. Still not convinced, Anna asks where Jane is and is presented with a woman who claims to be Jane Russell. But it is not the same woman Anna played cards with that night. Even Ethan goes along with his father's narrative by telling Anna that she has never met his mother. Satisfied with the situation, the Russells leave Anna with the detectives. Detective Little's partner inquires about Anna's false alarm call to 911 the previous day. Clearly, she's convinced Anna is insane. Friday morning, Anna gets up and devotes her day to cyberstalking the Russells. She looks for pictures and any trace of Jane she can find to prove that the woman presented to her was not the real Jane. She manages to find the company Alistair previously worked for and calls them. Anna discovers that Alistair's assistant in Boston died after she fell from the 6th-story balcony, and he was fired soon after. She goes to the basement looking for David, but he is not home. She notices some of his mail on the floor, specifically a notice of parole violation from Massachusetts. As she is standing there holding it, David comes home and finds her. He snatches the letter angrily and accuses her of being nosy. He reveals that he went to prison over a bar fight and isn't even supposed to be in New York, but he assures her that he was working on getting it sorted out. Slightly put off by his hostility, Anna tries to leave, but he backs her up against a wall and asks if they're cool. I don't blame him for going off on her. She really should have stayed out of his room. He pays rent for her. Later that night, after David leaves, Anna sits with her camera taking pictures of the Russells in their home. She watches as Jane makes dinner, and Alistair chastises her at the table. Jane gets up to leave and calls Anna. She threatens to call the police if Anna doesn't stop watching their house. The next day, Anna is looking for a cat and discovers him hiding under David's bed in the basement. While she is down there, she finds an earring on David's nightstand, the same earring the real Jane was wearing the night she came to Anna's house. Finally convinced she's not imagining things, Anna throws away all the alcohol in her house. She sees Ethan leaving his house and yells for him from her window, asking him where his mother is. He comes over to see her and pleads with her to stop digging into things. She asks him why he continues to protect his father. Suddenly, Alistair snatches Ethan through the door and strikes him across the face. He turns his attention back to Anna, backing her into a wall and warning her to stay away from his son. He threatens her, saying she's messing with the wrong family. When she threatens to call the police, he mocks her, calling her a pill-popping drunk cat lady. While she's going through a drawer, she finds the cartoon portrait Jane drew for her. She sits down on the couch to go through the pictures she's taken when she receives an email from a strange email address. She opens it to see a picture of her sleeping. She immediately calls the police, and both detectives come back. They don't find any evidence of a break-in, and Little's partner goes as far to accuse her of faking the email. Alistair comes bursting in after finding out that Anna called his old offices. The two of them scream accusations at each other angrily. David appears back home, confused as to what is happening. When the detectives question him about the recent accusations, he is unable to back up Anna's claims. At her limit, Anna starts spilling all of the information she's gathered so far from David's past and the earring on his bedside to Alistair's involvement in the Boston death. Her speech cultivates into the revelation that her family is dead, delivered by Detective Little's partner. We are then transported back with Anna to a trip to the mountains she took with her family. She talks to her daughter in the back seat, while Ed is in the passenger side. Everything seems happy at first, until Ed breaks the act and says he can't do it anymore. The two of them argue, and we learn that Anna cheated, and they are in the midst of working it out. Anna's phone rings with an unknown number calling. Ed goes to answer it, stating that it's probably him, but Anna knocks the phone out of his hand into the back. She tries to reach back for it, and the car swerves off the side of a cliff. We see the aftermath of the crash, and learn that Anna was the only one that survived. Anna has lived since then believing she talks to her family every day, and that they are just separated. Detective Little says that they talk to her doctor, and learn that her medications can cause hallucinations. He says that the woman checks out, and is the real Jane Russell. Anna turns in a daze, and apologizes for the trouble she has caused. Finally facing the reality of her family's death, she has new clarity, and understands her delusions. The next day, she talks with her therapist, and tells him she understands if he wants to recommend supervision. She tells him that she wants to change medications, and admits that she needs to be at the center of something, and that is why she constructed the murder story. He tells her that he is going to have someone assigned to live with her, since David is moving out, and that they will be going back to 3 sessions a week. Anna goes to retrieve a little container hidden in a bookshelf full of different pills. She crushes up the pills, and empties all the capsules onto a plate, and sits down in front of her phone to record a video. She reveals that she plans to take her life, and is making a video as a last will and testament. She struggles to settle on one take, and restarts the video multiple times. Frustrated with herself, and her inability to go through with it, she lays down and scrolls through pictures of her daughter on her phone. She stumbles across a picture she took the night Jane came to visit her, and notices that Jane's reflection was captured in one of the wine glasses in the picture. Renewed by her sanity, she hears David coming downstairs, and calls him up to show him. When she shows him the picture, and tells him that she is the woman she saw murdered, he tells her that the woman's name is actually Katie, and she is Ethan's birth mother. He says that she spent the night with him, and that she ran out on Alistair when she was 8 months pregnant, and went to prison after Ethan was born for drugs. Alistair paid her to stay away, but she found them when they moved in. Anna asks him to go to the police with her, but he is still not convinced that Katie is dead, and refuses. Anna accidentally knocks her computer off the desk, and breaks it. She hears a crash from in the hallway, and goes to inspect, and is greeted with Ethan holding a knife. He says that everyone thinks that he is in New Hampshire at a boys' camp, but he ran away to come back for her. He tells her that he killed David for sleeping with his mom, but he plans to pin it on Anna as a murder-suicide. He reveals that he's been in her house, stalking her, and Anna realizes that it was him who killed Katie, instead of Alistair. He goes on to tell her that it was also him that killed his father's assistant in Boston, and he plans to be a serial killer, but he hasn't found his MO yet. He says he likes being there at the women's final moments, and watching life leave their eyes. That is a grade A psycho right there. As he inches closer, anticipating her death, she turns and smashes her wine bottle over his head. She makes a run for it, but slips on David's blood in the hallway. David, who is barely alive, opens his eyes and attempts to trip Ethan and give Anna more time to get away. Anna runs up to the roof and goes out into the stormy weather. Ethan follows her, telling her to stop fighting him. The two confront each other, and Ethan slashes Anna across the face with a gardening tool, trying to throw her off the roof. Anna manages to tackle him onto the sundome, and breaks it under him, causing him to fall to his death in her home. Before collapsing on the roof, Anna later wakes up in a hospital, where Detective Little is waiting for her. He apologizes for not believing her, and says that they found Katie's body and have the Russells in custody. He tells her that he saw her suicide video, but he is the only one who has seen it. He places her phone next to her, and says that it somehow ended up at the hospital, and that when he comes back in an hour to ask about it, She'll give it to him. Before he leaves, he asks if he has to worry about her, and she tells him no. 9 months later, Anna has recovered from her injuries and her agoraphobia. She says her final goodbyes to her house and family as she's moving out. The movie ends with her and Punch getting into a cab and driving away. Hope you enjoyed our summary. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos weekly. Thanks.